Hi everyone, I'm so excited today to be filming my best books of the year video. This is easily my favorite video to film and then to watch. I just love talking about my favorite books, and what better way to do it than a wrap-up video for the year. These are all the books that I read in 2016, not necessarily published this year, but a good portion of them were. I do have a bit of a theme this year that you're going to find a lot of escapist reads on this list. Honestly, my personal life, I just had a really rough year, a lot of health issues. And when I went to read, I found myself reading for escape, for fun, for distraction. And that definitely is reflective in my wrap up. I ended up choosing 9 books this year. I thought about changing it to 10 and squeezing in a book somewhere, but I decided not to artificially up the number just to make it nice and pretty. So these are 9 books that I think are awesome, I would widely recommend, and I just love this year. So let's get started. Rather than ranking them, I decided to break them up into the genre categories, but I will be leaving my favorite book until last, so I'll leave that category to the very end. First, I want to talk graphic novels, and no surprise, I have Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples on this list, particularly volumes 5 and 6. This has been a longtime favorite, possibly my favorite graphic novel of all time, and I find these last few volumes have been fantastic. It's of course a sci-fi space opera that is terribly inappropriate and fun and full of adventure, and I just love it. So highly recommend. If you have not tried this somehow and have ignored the hype on BookTube, don't wait any longer. It's absolutely worth picking up. Going in a very different direction, the other graphic novel I loved this year was El Deafo by Cece Bell, and this is a graphic memoir about a woman's experience growing up deaf, and it's technically targeted for children, and I really don't normally read children's literature, but this was so well done. I think it's a book that will appeal to readers of all ages. The main character is drawn as an animal, which I thought was a really cute cartoony style, but the book itself is very deep. I found it very emotional and also very insightful into the experience of having a disability, particularly being deaf. I found that I learned a lot personally, and I really think it's a book that more people should be reading. Next, in fantasy, I have to recommend The Wizard Killer by Adam Dries. This is a super fun, serialized fantasy story set in almost a post-apocalyptic world. It is serialized, meaning that is a collection of episodes that were originally published online and then compiled into this book. This is a book by a Canadian independent author, and I feel so happy to be including this on the list. The story itself is about a man who wakes up with a sword plunged into his chest, and the story really takes off from there. This is all action, all fun, non-stop adventure. You will fly through these chapters. This is perfect for a reluctant reader. I read this when I was in a little bit of a reading slump and devoured it in I think one sitting. It's so much fun, and more people need to read this. I loved it. So that is The Wizard Killer by Adam Dries. Next, in nonfiction, there's a book I knew I had to include when I compiled this list, and that is True Crime Addict by James Renner. This was recommended to me by subscriber Leslie when she knew I was looking for books and was a big fan of the Serial podcast. And she thought I would absolutely love this book. I heard the synopsis and immediately picked it up. This is a combination of true crime and memoir. Essentially, it's about a woman who went missing in college, and her car was found, but she never was. And as a journalist, James Renner goes in and investigates what happened to her. In the modern age, he uses social media to reach out to her friends and family and basically tries to piece together what happened. It was so addicting, and the story itself is also part memoir because it also tells a story of James Renner himself, and he admits that he is a very obsessive person with some very destructive tendencies. And he gets completely wrapped up in this case, and you see what it does to his own personal life. I love this story. I'm definitely going to reread it because I feel like there were so many small details in there, and I feel like another reading would give me better insight into the story. So highly recommend to any fans of true crime, or even if you typically read fiction, it read like a fiction crime story and it was absolutely addicting. Highly, highly recommend that one. My next category is mysteries and thrillers. I have 3 books to talk about, and technically my favorite book is not in this section, which is definitely unusual for me. First, I want to talk about Creep by Jennifer Hiller, and this was one of my first exciting favorite reads of the year. This is a fun escapist thriller story about a professor who has an affair with a student. She tries to break it off when she becomes engaged, but she's a bit of a sex addict and her student does not take the breakup well, and terrible things ensue. I found this a really addictive, fun story, and like the title suggests, I actually found this legitimately creepy. There was one scene that really put my hair on end. I just thought there was some really creepy details put in that just really worked for me. A lot of fun, not necessarily perfect, but just enjoyable read, and I'm really looking forward to reading more by this author because I think she has a lot of potential, and that was just a great book to pick up this year. Next on this list is the Kate Burkholder series by Linda Costello. The first book being Sworn to Silence. I listened to this on audiobook as well as the second book, and I just thought this was a fantastic mystery series. It centers around a tough female detective who is the chief of police in this small town, which happens to have an Amish community. And despite having this Amish element in the series, the book surprised me by being very dark, very gritty. It's not for the squeamish reader, but if you're looking for an addictive, well-written book with fantastic characters and you're not afraid of a darker mystery story, this is a fantastic series to pick up. I loved both the first 2 books and really look forward to reading the rest of the series. I think there's about 10 or 11 books out now, and I'm happy to have so much to read because so far it's a quality series and it's just been fantastic to pick up. So highly recommend that mystery series if you're looking for something new. My last selection in mystery is Broken Harbor by Tana French. I actually read 3 books by her this year, but this was definitely my favorite. This is a book about a family in this quiet community that are murdered, and it possibly looks like a home invasion, but the detectives go in to investigate and basically try to figure out what actually happened to this family. I found the mystery to be gripping, but as always with Tana French, the character development was even better. Particularly, I love the development of the detective, and it was just so good, so gripping. I was in the middle of a big reading slump and just DNFing books like mad, and I finally picked this up, and it was so nice to have a book that completely gripped me in. I think this is one of her very best in her series. I loved it and would definitely recommend this either as a standalone, or if you're reading through the series, make sure that you don't miss this one. It's fantastic. Finally, the last category in this video is science fiction. I first want to recommend Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is a super fun sci-fi thriller about a man who is having dinner with his family, goes out for ice cream, is kidnapped, and from there something happens and he realizes that his family is no longer his family, and from there basically spends the rest of the book trying to get back to them. I don't want to say too much more because it's really a book where it's better to go in as blind as possible and figure it out for yourself, but I thought it was such a gripping, addictive page turner. It was one of those super fun books of the year that I would recommend widely, and it was super fun, so I definitely want to recommend that one as one of the best books I read this year. Finally, I have my 9th and favorite book of the year, which is actually a series. You can probably guess what it is. And that is the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey. I'm holding up Leviathan Wakes, but I have read all 6 published books and love them. I binge read this series in less than 2 months. Even though the books are quite chunky, I devoured them at a ridiculous rate. And I cannot recommend them enough if you're looking for that fun space opera feel. I can't say too much about the plot without giving away too much of the story, Essentially, it takes place in a future where humans have moved past Earth, so we still live on Earth, but also other people live on Mars as well as in the asteroid belt. And the story is told from a couple of perspectives, particularly a man on an ice hauler and then also a detective. This is a great blend of cross genres, which I think makes it really approachable if you don't read a lot of sci-fi. There's a mystery element in this first book and definitely some elements of horror if you enjoy kind of some grosser shock value content. It's a lot of fun, very entertaining, cutthroat, but also good humor in the books. It's been described as Game of Thrones in space, which can set up unrealistic expectations, but I do understand the comparisons and I had so much fun. Again, I binge read it, which gives you an idea of how entertaining I found it, so highly recommend this series if you're looking to get into sci-fi or are already into the genre but haven't picked this up. This is definitely one to try. Highly, highly recommend. So those are the 9 books / series that I adored this year. I just loved every one of them and would recommend them so highly. If you have not picked them up, please let me know down below which books are you planning on picking up in 2017 off my list. And if you have read any of these books, feel free to mention them down below and we can gush about them in the comments. If you've done your own best of the books video, feel free to link it down below. I would love to watch it if I haven't yet seen it. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you again soon. Okay, bye.